right, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're going on a tour of one of the most amazing factories in the entire universe, and it's running inside you right now, in your bones. We're gonna uncover the incredible story of how every single one of your blood cells gets made, and, even cooler, how we figured out how to take command of that process to save lives. If this stuff fascinates you as much as it does me, do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. You won't want to miss what's coming next. So let's just start with something that might blow your mind a little. Right this second, as you're listening to my voice, your body is churning out billions of new blood cells. Not millions, billions. So how? How on earth does your body pull off this constant, unbelievably complicated manufacturing job 24/7 without messing it up? Well, that is exactly what we're here to figure out. So our story starts inside this amazing biological factory. We're going to take a look at the factory floor, meet the master workers, and figure out how they get their instructions to keep this whole operation running smoothly. Okay, the official term for this whole process is hemopoiesis. I know, it's a bit of a mouthful, but if you break it down from its Greek roots, it's actually super simple. Hemo means blood, and poiesis means to make. Simple as that. This is the master blueprint, the one single process that creates every red cell, every white cell, and every platelet you have. Now, what's really cool is that this entire system basically stands on three main pillars. First, you've got the bone marrow stroma. Think of that as the factory floor itself. Then you have the hemopoietic stem cells. These are your tireless master workers. And finally, you have the hemopoietic growth factors. These are the chemical messages that act like production orders, telling the workers exactly what to make and how much of it. So where is this factory actually located? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating because its address actually changes as we grow up. And this image right here just captures that journey perfectly. Look over on the left. In a fetus, blood production kicks off in a place called the yolk sac, and then it moves over to the liver and the spleen. But after birth, like you see on the right, the whole operation permanently moves into the bone marrow. It's this incredible migration of a process that's absolutely essential to life. Let's just map that out on a timeline to make it crystal clear. For the first 2 months in the womb, it's the yolk sac doing all the work. From month 2 to 7, the liver and spleen take over as the main hubs. But then, starting around the 5th month of fetal life and going all the way through adulthood, the bone marrow takes charge. And once we're adults, that production is really focused in what's called the axial skeleton. So your vertebrae, your pelvis, and your sternum. Okay, so now we know where it happens. Let's dig into the how. How are these stem cells getting their orders to create such a wild variety of different blood cells whenever we need them? And that brings up a really important question. What is so special about bone marrow? Why is that the perfect permanent home for this factory for our entire lives? Well, the answer is right here. It's this incredibly complex little world called the stem cell niche. And you can see from this cross-section, it is not just some empty space. It is a bustling, highly organized city with arteries, sinuses, and a whole community of different cells all working together. So the big takeaway here is that this niche is the ultimate incubator. It gives physical support, it delivers all the nutrients and those critical growth factors. It tells the cells when to divide and what they should become. And it even keeps them alive by stopping them from self-destructing. It's the perfect support system. And remember those production orders we talked about? Well, these are them. They're called hemopoietic growth factors, or HGFs. Just think of them as these little protein messengers that act as molecular commands. They float around, find specific cells that are ready for instructions, and give them direct orders. Okay, you, divide now, or you, turn into a neutrophil. You know, understanding this beautiful system is one thing, but what happens when it gets completely wiped out? This is where the science goes from being cool to being a complete lifesaver. So one of the most common and dangerous side effects of chemotherapy is something called neutropenia. Chemo is designed to kill cancer cells, which divide really fast. But unfortunately, it also takes out our fast-dividing blood stem cells in the bone marrow. This causes the number of neutrophils, our frontline infection-fighting white blood cells, to just plummet, leaving patients in a really vulnerable spot. So this led to a huge question. If we understand the command system, those growth factors, could we hijack it? Could we send in our own production orders to turbocharge the factory and help patients rebuild their defenses? And the answer to that question was a massive yes. And it's honestly one of the great success stories of modern medicine, turning that fundamental science about HGFs into powerful, life-changing therapies. meets the two main players in this story, GCSF and GMCSF. These are synthetic growth vectors. That means we figured out how to make our own versions of the body's natural command signals in a lab. We can then inject them into a patient to specifically tell their bone marrow, hey, we need you to ramp up production of white blood cells right now.
And the results? They're pretty amazing. Giving a patient GCSF after chemo dramatically cuts down the time they spend in that dangerous neutropenic state. And that means a much lower risk of life-threatening fevers, it means shorter hospital stays, and it means less need for heavy-duty IV antibiotics. It's become a total cornerstone of cancer care.
But science is always full of nuance, right? While these drugs are fantastic at bringing neutrophil counts back up and reducing complications, it's also important to see the whole picture. A big recent review showed that despite all those clear benefits, they don't seem to have a major effect on overall mortality. It just shows that they're a powerful tool, but not a magic bullet.
But the story doesn't stop with white blood cells. This exact same idea of using man-made growth factors can be used for other critical parts of our blood, like the tiny cells that literally stop us from bleeding to death.
Yep, we can use the exact same strategy for platelets, those little guys responsible for clotting our blood. When a patient's platelet count drops to dangerous levels, that's a condition called thrombocytopenia, we can step in again and issue some new production orders.
So the body's natural command signal for making platelets is a hormone called thrombopoietin, or TPO. And based on that, scientists developed a whole class of drugs called TPO receptor agonists. These are basically molecular mimics that go in, hit the TPO receptor on the stem cells, and trick the factory into churning out more platelets. It's brilliant. And this, right here, really just sums up the whole journey, doesn't it? It is the perfect example of how biomedical discovery works. Step 1. Understand a basic biological process, hemopoiesis. Step 2, find the key molecules that control it, the HGFs. Step 3, use our technology to create drugs that copy them. And step 4, use those drugs to treat patients and, quite literally, save their lives. So we've basically learned to speak the language of our own stem cells. We can give them commands to rebuild one of the most vital systems in our entire body. And that just leaves us with this one huge, exciting question. What other tissues, what other organs will we command them to build next? Thank you so much for your time today. Be on the lookout for our next drop.